Willkommen, bienvenidos, and welcome back to my podcast, Low Power Mode with Breezy. This is my weekly safe space to discuss music, TV, and film that lies at the intersections of Black and queer, POC, and intersectional feminist, and all sorts of other transgressive experiences. So let's go.
I got an excess of black bile, high irascibility, contemplating checking myself into facility, mental ability clearly affected,
Deep in the dumps, down and dejected.
I've been in low power mode. In low power mode. Been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low. I've been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear.
Hey, so before we get into the music section, song choice of the day, I just wanted to say, last weekend and the weekend before that were the Coachella weekends. And I knew Coachella from, years ago to be the festival that the kids who have money go to out in the desert in California. And but this year, because of what has all commenced with COVID and everything, they televised like all of the performances. So it was so dope to be able to just tune in wherever I was at whatever hour during the weekend and check out performances. And obviously, I don't know, I get kind of nervous like when I'm out in big groups of people with like regulation and security and like I don't know. The idea of going to Coachella is great. In practicality, it doesn't feel so great to me. And so to be able to experience it, through video, but still like these camera angles, like everyone's figured out how to live stream, how to just get the best out of these performances where like so many cameras, so many I don't know. It just feels like it would be better to just sit and like put it up on a projector and just kick it at home and stream Coachella for free. I'm still at that point where it's like, okay, we don't have to pay for this yet. That's dope. But yeah, for me as a performer, getting to see a wide array of really professional, really advanced in their career artists, for the most part, it was fantastic. And just to see all these different elements and things. I mean, yeah, Coachella is pipe dreams for a lot of us, but still, you can take something from anybody's performance, no matter how big of a star they are, and apply it to your own gig. So, yeah, thank you to all the Coachella artists. I really loved all the sensitivity and the like. We haven't been able to do this for 2 years, and just the messages that everyone had. Everyone just seemed really kind and grateful to be out with people. So cool. Hope to see you there someday as an artist, not as a guest. And let's go. Let's roll into music. Music. All right. So gonna unmute my sound bites right now. Okay. So we're gonna get it kicked off in the music section with a song called April in Paris by Sarah Vaughan, the late, great Sarah Vaughan, incredible jazz blues singer, if you're not familiar with Sarah Vaughan. But the song has an earlier history than her. It was originally part of a play. It was part of a play called, what was the play called? Walk a Little Faster. And it was written by these two guys who had Russian immigration backgrounds, funnily enough. And they wrote it for this play. This was before the Great Depression, so I think like late 20s, maybe early 30s. The play didn't do very well, but the song was sung in the play by someone who had laryngitis. So she struggled through the song, and it wasn't popular then. But then different people started to perform it, as was commonly done on the circuit. You know, some of our like pop culture songs come from theater plays. I'm kind of like new to understanding this, but this is one of those songs, and this song was performed by just think jazz singer, and they performed it like Frank Sinatra, Thelonious Monk, Ella Fitzgerald, Charlie Parker. I read this great little article put out by the Library of Congress. And in the first sentence of the article, they were talking about the song April in Paris, but in the first sentence, they're like, Happy Jazz Appreciation Month. I had no idea that April was Jazz Appreciation Month. Did you know that? I had no idea. And jazz is such a huge fundamental part of my music history, knowledge, sound, you know, like everything. It's just, I'm like, oh, geez, is this another case of me being a bad Black person? But apparently, back in 2001, this guy John Edward Hassa or Haas, who was a curator at the Smithsonian, he founded Jazz Appreciation Month. And do you know what that acronym is? Say it. JAM. It's JAM. How cool is that? I'm just so glad to know this. And initially, the Jazz Appreciation Month was funded by Ella Fitzgerald herself. So, fun fact, I put up a little link in the show notes about how to celebrate Jazz Appreciation Month, and check it out, because the cool thing about jazz is that it's so universal. Like you can't separate Western music cultures from jazz. You simply can't. Think like the whitest like classical, music in Germany or whatever. Like jazz has still come into the mainstream forms of music in a way that is so influential that no matter where in the world you are, like there's likely some sort of jazz thing going on. The form just completely caught on. So that's I don't know. I could go on about jazz forever, but happy motherfucking Jazz Appreciation Month. So glad I know that. Anyway, Sarah Vaughan, incredible jazz singer, and she sings April in Paris. Now, I haven't heard other renditions, and I read in this article that I linked that Count Basie's was the most popular. I think because he did a fun recording of it, or would play it, and he would do like a fake ending, they said. So he would pretend the song would end and they'd be like, one more time. Because the song is like 3 choruses that repeat. It's not, but it's much more than that. But in essence, that's what's happening. So that's fun. And then there was a film, April in Paris. I think it starred like Doris Day or something. And they used, I think Count Basie's version of the song was used there somehow. So rich history with this song, but I've been so lucky to connect with the one and only Queen Hippie Gypsy. So if you live in the Bay Area, you gotta go check out Queen Hippie Gypsy shop in downtown Oakland. And Lily, who runs the shop, the Queen Hippie Gypsy herself, she's just so incredible. Not only as a person and a business owner, but just a spiritual being. And we got to meet and actually sought Lily's services. So we had this meeting, and it was beautiful. And and she is a singer. And so we wanted to kind of do something together. And she said, this song, I would just love to do, some sort of version of this. So I have her to thank for bringing this song into my attention. And hopefully we'll be producing a really great song inspired by this song. But the song itself is just, it's just, it really, it's a ride. It takes you away. And yeah, I focus on a lot of popular music, a lot of hip hop, and this song is just slow. Lately, I've been appreciating slowness way more because the pace of everything fucks with my mental health. So slowing everything down makes more sense to me. So listening to a song with a super slow kind of like shuffle rhythm to it is really calming. And in the song, it starts out like the first, I want to say like minute and a half, it's just the piano and Sarah Vaughan's voice. And jazz singers are, they do not sing on the beat. They do not sing on the beat. They are not rapping. They go way out there. They bring it back. They go, all over the place. So that kind of, it's not a cappella. There is a piano accompaniment, but the beginning of the song being so simple and clean and minimal really brings you in. And then after she takes you through, she kind of like shows you around. And then the instruments come in, and there's this really long, nice kind of new ambiance and atmosphere set by the instruments. A little like jazz, not heavy drums, not loud as fuck like the way that we hear them on the radio, but like soft, jazz drums, hi-hats. There's horns that come in. It's stunning. And then when she comes back in for the second chorus, she and the horn are kind of like the two vocalists going back and forth with each other. There's a line, what is the line? There's a part where the horn is kind of like fluttering, and then she does the same thing with her voice. This kind of thing is so beautiful. And in my place with like electronic music production and stuff, like I'm not around real vocalists and real musicians and stuff to see, I can put on Homecoming and watch Beyonce perform at Coachella and like kind of go back and forth with the electric guitar. But these slower, quieter, more intimate moments where a voice is going back with a horn instrument, it takes me away. It really does. Jazz has always done that to me though. And I know jazz is kind of like cilantro. Like some people love it and some people really hate it. I think the people who hate jazz though, I think they don't understand it. And I think if you kind of if you take some time to understand why things sound the way they do, I don't know. I don't know how people could not love jazz. But also I think with just like any genre, there's been so many interpretations and reinterpretations and everything. So there's the classic stuff, and then there's, what's happening now, and maybe like there's some jazz fusion stuff that's like too much for people, or I don't know, but I love jazz elements. I'm obsessed with jazz. So yeah, and then Sarah Vaughan, the third time, it's like all the instruments are there, and her voice is so. I first came into Sarah Vaughan through Amy Winehouse because she said that Sarah Vaughan was her biggest inspiration. And I can see that. You know, Amy had such a distinct tone and attitude in her voice, and I think Sarah Vaughan has a very similar thing. You can say that about many of the jazz singers, many of the popular jazz singers that we know, but there's something about her voice and earthiness, non-pretentiousness, and like a soul so deep. Yeah, really incredible. So, you know, if you want to go back and put something on that's maybe a little different compared to what you've been listening to lately, it's just a great song. It's timeless. And yeah, timely. So thank you, Queen Hippie Gypsy. Thank you, Sarah Vaughan. Thank you, what were their names? Vernon Duke and Yip Harburg. They wrote the song. And happy Jazz Appreciation Month. All right, that's going to end out our music section. We're going to roll over into film. Television. I said we're going to roll into film, but we're rolling into TV. I think I have feelings about, obviously, I have so many feelings about this next section. Maybe I mentally skipped over it. Or maybe I'm super excited for film. I don't know. Could be either one. But we're in the TV section. And today I felt compelled to talk about the series Atlanta. Now, I'm like, where do I start with caveats and stuff? Basically, the way I feel about Donald Glover and Atlanta is that they are both in each in their own right, undeniably like important, people / productions in Black culture. And for the millennial generation and representation and Donald Glover also was an actor, rapper, comedian for a little bit there. And now he's executive producing his own show. So there's a lot. There's just a lot. And Atlanta isn't a show where I'm like, I love Atlanta. It's not like the majority of the things that I talk about on this podcast where I just unabashedly love it for a variety of reasons. But I feel like it's really important to talk about things that I also like may not necessarily be intended for me, but or may not be how I would do something or whatever. But I think that makes shit super interesting. And yeah, even though Donald Glover is not like my favorite Black creator right now, I give so many props to what he's been able to do. I think he's someone who started out, making videos and stuff, and then got into being a comedy writer on 30 Rock. He went to NYU from Stone Mountain, Georgia. So from Georgia, from the country, and went to New York City for his education and graduated from, everyone knows like NYU, the Tisch program specifically. If you go there, that's kind of like you're likely to, be on TV or in movies or whatever if you put in the work, because there's so many connections and you're in New York City and all that stuff. So he was able to get in the writer's room and make some cameos on the show 30 Rock, which was massive in the aughts. And that was Tina Fey's show that she produced with Lorne Michaels, who does SNL. And it's basically about 30 Rock is like if you took Saturday Night Live, the sketch comedy entertainment show, and made it into a TV show. So 30 Rock is so great. It's so funny. And Donald Glover cutting his teeth there, I think is huge, just massive for what was to come. So fast forward to Atlanta season 3. Now, if you're not up on Atlanta or know anything about Atlanta, here's what's going on. It's executive produced by Donald Glover, and he kind of has a team of people. His brother Steven and the director EmArcy and a few other people like his manager and some other people who he's been on tour with. And I get the sense that there's this group and they do like everything together, like different projects and things. So this group, the first season of Atlanta came out back in 2016, and the story is about a rapper, Alfred, who goes by Paperboy, and his best friend Darius and his cousin Ern. Ern is played by Donald Glover. Alfred is played by Brian Tyree Henry, and Darius is played by Lakeith Stanfield. And then you have Ern's partner, what's her name in the show? Vanessa. She goes by Van, played by Zazie Beetz. So the cast is great, all beautiful, talented Black actors. And kind of like Insecure. This is probably the only comparison I'll make between Atlanta and Insecure. The way that Los Angeles is like a character, or so much of the environment, the tapestry of the show Insecure, Atlanta definitely is that for the show Atlanta. So they stayed true to that. Now the third season takes place in Europe. So now we're taking Atlanta out of Atlanta. They still managed to make it Atlanta. But it's really interesting. So the first season came out back in 2016, and just, the first season of a show, people are kind of getting used to it and stuff. Donald Glover also has this like troll persona thing. And so some of that energy makes the show epic. I mean, he does some stuff like in the first season, I'm pretty sure it's the first season, he has Cat Williams guest star. Cat Williams is a Black comedian, stand-up comedian, hilarious, been in a ton of movies. And he plays Alfred's tenant, basically, I guess, kind of like a uncle, but not really. And he has an alligator, and there's this whole scene with the alligator and a gun, and like Cat Williams escaping in a bathrobe, and it's just good TV. It's great. I think Cat Williams won an Emmy for that episode. And then there was an episode called BAN, which stands for Black and, oh my God, what is it? Black Atlanta Network? Okay, kind of blanking on the A, but something like this. Let's say Black Atlanta Network. And the whole episode is an interview, like a TV, like a cable TV, or like local TV news kind of interview setting between this Black TV host in Atlanta and then this white woman transgender activist or transgender rights activist and Paperboy. And the episode is really funny, really well written, makes some funny twists and turns. There's a super random part about this Black guy who he sees himself as white. So taking from Dave Chappelle and some things that we've seen before, but just it was so funny. And Donald Glover directed that episode, so you don't get any other cast or characters. The whole episode is the interview, so you only have Brian Tyree Henry from the main cast in this episode. So Donald Glover directed it, and he won an Emmy for Outstanding Director for a comedy series, and he was the first Black man. He's the first like African American to do so. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I give Donald Glover his flowers. I do. Um, this show is just wild, though. Okay, so then you have season 2, and they're still there. Paperboy's starting to get recognized in the streets and stuff. Like, he's definitely on his way up. They do some really funny explorations with like bringing him into, for instance, like a Spotify, a fictional kind of Spotify situation where the offices have like glass windows and are super nice and everything, but you essentially have white people who like don't give or like who are kind of commodifying black culture, making money off of it. And so they bring him in to do a promo, for instance, and there's like make it more ghetto and like this, just these microaggressions with being the only like black people in an all white space or a very like capitalist space. And this is another undeniable reason why the show is important, because especially like with me as an artist and going through the experiences that I've gone through, yes, people aren't going to get you. People aren't going to understand that you can do what you do for a living. There's just so much. And then there's racial and gendered components to it too. But it's crazy because as an artist, you're putting yourself out there in the most ultimate way. So anyone can come up to you and say shit about what you do. You're opening yourself up for that. So some of the stuff in here, the microaggressions, the racial, like kind of exposing the systems at play is great. And I think because Donald Glover has been an internationally touring rapper, he really can draw from personal experience. Him and his group can draw from personal experience to be able to make these experiences feel like they're normal for us, for people of color, and for people who, deal with these microaggressions. But there's also this huge surrealist twist to the show. For instance, that BAN episode, like the whole thing is like fictionalized, and it has like fictionalized ads and things. So did it really happen? It's very like dream logic kind of thing that you have to keep in mind when watching Atlanta. And so all that being said, I rewatched season 1 and 2 to freshen up and prepare myself for season 3. And now I've watched just about halfway through season 3, which is that's what's available, that I'm up on where we're at. And it's 6 episodes in. I have some issues. All right, so here's what goes down. So remember how I mentioned the first season was in 2016? Well, the second season, because of scheduling conflicts, AKA Donald Glover's rap career or something like that, I imagine, pushed season 2 to be dropped in 2018. So Atlanta fans have waited 4 years for the third season of Atlanta. Now, of course, the pandemic was not the Glover production team's fault, but there's a certain expectation after 4 years, and there's 2 years in between season 1 and season 2, so 4 years between season 2 and season 3. And so what happened was there was a 2-episode drop for season 3. And in the very first episode, none of the, I want to say titular, but that doesn't really apply here. None of the main cast are in the episode, except for Earn in the last 30 seconds because he wakes up from a dream. And I'm going to break this all the way down to you. they start out with this white guy named Ern and a black guy sitting in a boat at night in this body of water. And the white Ern is talking about racism in a quote unquote woke way. And kind of dropping some points for a white guy. But then the forces that be like overtake, like it's kind of like a stereotypical horror film where there's some sort of scene in the beginning where there's some wisdom that's dropped or whatever, and then something bad happens. So like that black guy like gets taken, and then we're suddenly in a new atmosphere. And the episode kind of revolves around this kid named Loquarius, I'm pretty sure is his name in the episode. So he the school, this was great. The school, they were the white teachers talking about like the new initiative. So like the kids are gonna go see Black Panther 2. And of course this was something I remember seeing music videos of, like black children up on desks and chairs like dancing because their teachers bought them tickets to see Black Panther. So this is like very topical, very taken from like real experiences and, Twitter videos and stuff. So, people have different feelings about that methodology, but so Loquarius is super excited about it. He like gets up on his desk and dances, but then he gets in trouble for that. And then his parents come, or mom and granddad come to school, and mom is pissed from having to be pulled from work, and granddad gives him 3 slaps in the face. Light slaps, nothing alarming, but he slaps him in the school. And then the white teachers are essentially, they end up calling CPS, Child Protective Services. So, okay. So it's also wild because the episode is called 3 Slaps, and it aired like right around the time that the Oscars slap happened. So just kind of weird synchronicity there. But so the kid's mom is just over everything, and she's like, fine, leave, whatever. CPS takes the kid and then places him with these 2 lesbians, these 2 white lesbians. So the white lesbians are doing all this classic stuff that I've also seen on Twitter, like not like there's jokes about like white people can't fry chicken. So, they flour the chicken and then they're like putting it in the microwave, and Loquarius won't eat it. And there's this kind of situation going on. And again, I appreciate some of the racial, like the bigger things at play here. Like, okay, because in the black community, it's more because in communities of color, spanking and violence and stuff is more tolerated or a part of the culture. When that intercedes with whiteness and white culture and what white people think about violence, then systems like Child Protective Services get involved for worse, not for better. So I appreciate that this is speaking on that. But also just some of the stuff, it just feels like, all right, we get it. So, but yeah, these white hippies, whatever. So they're doing that. And they're out during the day, they've got the kids in like hats and garden gloves, and they're out in the garden, and they only let them eat carrots. And so they've got a modern day like slavery situation going on, just fucked up. And it's just weird. You don't know what to think because it's Donald Glover and it's surrealism, and okay, none of the characters are here. What's going on? But it's also a lot as a black person because we're like, okay, we're getting hit over the head with something that we know is going on in real life. And then the lesbians, they get in this van and they take the dog, and the dog is getting treated better than the kids or whatever. So they're in this van, they're driving, and then they stop off somewhere and they let the dog out. And the the kid Loquarius, there's other children, there's like 3 or 4 other children as well in the van. And the moms are talking about, like the lesbians are talking about vague, abstract shit, and they're driving the car faster and faster. And then they drive the van right off this bridge, essentially, like into the water that is presumably the water that we saw in the beginning of the episode, where like there's a whole other story. I'm not going to get into it, but now luckily in the episode the kids escaped, and so they showed that they found the kids by the side of the road or whatever, and that Loquarius had helped them like escape their demise with these white lesbians. But after and then it's kind of like that the fact that the mom only had spaghetti for him in the beginning in the fridge, and then he went through this whole experience, and then Loquarius goes back and he's like, "Mom, is there some spaghetti in the fridge?" She's like, "Yeah." It's like, okay, we get it felt a bit moralistic to me. And then at the very end, Ern wakes up in a hotel room, and so he dreamt this. But then I went and immediately researched the episode, and it's a true story. And the kids didn't survive. And it just felt dark as fuck. I know that this was like one of 2 episodes that was being released, but for a 4-year wait to bring it back on a story, a true story that's actually happened in Atlanta, that's a tragic story, and to just kind of use that and other other things that Black folks will resonate with, like the Black Panther tickets and the slapping in school and the I don't know. I was not happy after watching this episode, and it just felt weird as fuck. Like, what the hell just happened? So, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I'm definitely going to stick through it and watch the 3rd season. The next episode, at least the next episode is called Sinterklaas is Coming to Town. And I know about Zwart Piet and this whole, it's like essentially like a European or Dutch, like blackface narrative with, Zwart Piet is like Santa's little helper. And it's like, or what was he his slave because you're in blackface? And it's like, oh no, he went down the chimney. It's kind of like this whole thing. So again, Atlanta is good at breaking down certain things and bringing attention to certain things. But some of the execution here, I just don't know. And there's one episode, I don't remember if it's the Sinterklaas episode, but let's say it is, where so Van in the episodes, it's just, okay, it's like, okay, they're in Europe now. Van ends up coming out to Europe to find herself. There's no mention of Lottie, their daughter that they shared together, Ern and Van. And so Van's just out there, and she and Darius end up going to some weird like ceremony thing because she found an address in a jacket at a thrift store. So they go. Like, I can appreciate that. That's fun. A little adventure for the day. You're in a different country. I get that. But then they go, and it's this like death ceremony sort of thing. And it's this black man, and Darius is kind of like presuming that it's Tupac because Tupac faked his death or whatever. But it's this black man. And then there's this really gratuitous like death scene. And I get it. I get that Donald Glover's trying to shock. I get that he's giving us something really dark and trying to like say something, but I've talked a lot about how I've talked a lot about like how some work like Candyman does such a good job of handling Black trauma, and presenting it to us in ways that don't re-trigger us. And for me, this was re-triggering. Like this pair of episodes, or I don't remember if this was in the Zinta. I'm pretty sure it was, but it just felt like, dude, I just don't know. I don't know. So if you watch Atlanta, let me know what you think, because I feel like when I look up what's going on with like the general public, people are very quick to crown Donald Glover as being a brilliant genius, and I I'm not. As I said, I give Donald Glover his flowers. I just don't know. I just don't know. And maybe it's something I'm missing. Maybe it's something I'm not getting. Maybe if I watched the whole thing together again, all together, it would make more sense to me. Like the style, the tone, maybe that. But some of this stuff, I'm just like, really? Do we have to go there? But that's kind of his thing. So yeah, that's where I'm at with Atlanta. Uh It's also like little things too, like the fact that in the little, like on Hulu, the little descriptions underneath, Donald Glover in the first 2 seasons, he makes these little comments underneath. So it's clearly him writing these things. And it's not like, Darius and Paperboy go to, no, it's not written that way. It's written in first person, and it's little like snarky comments or whatever. But in the first 2 seasons, there's something about it that's kind of charming, and then in the third season, some of these little under the episode moments, they just seem awkward. They just seem like, dude, you feel like it seems like you're not into what you're giving out right now. And it's strange. It's just strange to be in that place with a Black creator, because Donald Glover's also someone who's been wealthy for so long at such a young age. Maybe this is part of it. I don't know. But all right, so I hopped over to Hulu just to give you an example. So for episode 1, 3 slaps, underneath it, the sub caption is, "Wow, it's been a minute. I mean, I like this episode about the troubled kid, but we waited 50 years for this." Okay, if I actually feel that way, then why are you writing it there? Like, what? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Let's see. Okay, for episode 6, white fashion. This is the one that came out on Friday. I've definitely seen this before on a better show. They're always stealing ideas, but the fashion industry got to be exposed. Hashtag streetwear. So you're calling yourself out. I simply don't get. I need someone to explain this season 3 to me, or just, yeah. I'm watching, I'm tuning in, but I'm confused. So that's what I have for you on Atlanta. I hope this was okay to go there. And now let's roll it over to film. Movies. Film. All right, so super excited for this section. This is our first interview for the Low Power Mode podcast, and I got to interview my dear friend, brother in rap, Groovyie. And we talked about the film King Richard, because Groovyie has so much going on with his background and his story that kind of parallels and ties in and relates to the film King Richard. So I'm not going to do too much to talk about anything else here. I'm just going to play you our interview, and yeah, this was really, really great for me. So hope you enjoy it. So King Richard is the biopic of Venus and Serena Williams' tennis career and general life growing up in Compton with their mom and dad and siblings. And it's incredibly inspiring. it's my version of Remember the Titans, like back in the early 2000s. I think it's this generation's like black family come up story, sports story. And I love that it features and focuses on women. The even though the film is called King Richard, it's very much about the girls, and also a cis black man trying to protect his girls in a world that he knows rules don't really matter or apply. So yeah, that's a small synopsis of King Richard. I'm sitting here with the one, the only, Veterans Park legend, brown skin baby. It's groovy. It's groovy, y'all. It's groovy. And yeah, we talked about. Well, we've been talking about Will Smith because we both read the book, Will. And he was so influential in rap and hip hop before he even hit the screen, like with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And so, yeah, and we talked about Bel-Air on the podcast before, but that was more about like the reinterpretation. So here we are digging into Will Smith as the actor, his latest work, and it's King Richard. And when I was talking to you about it, I was like, have you seen it? And you were like, 4 or 5 times.
6 times.
6 times. So I want to start out by asking, why have you seen it 6 times and how does it resonate with you?
Well, I saw it 6 times because of how it resonated with me. It's like, one, it's kind of funny that, and I told you this, that I saw it initially for 2 reasons. That my family's from Compton, and as we did research on it yesterday, that the park that they shot everything at and, you know, Beyonce did her Be Alive performance at, that's at the tennis courts that is literally 1 block away from my grandma's house. So, like, even when I saw, like, the promo and everything like that, and they were, like, pushing the car with the girls in it and all that stuff, I was like, that looks very familiar. I was like, this looks, like, too familiar. So I saw it for the fact that my family grew up in Compton in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that, and around the same time that they did. And I have an auntie that actually used to play tennis with Serena at one point when they were, like, kids and stuff. So just always kind of bringing it back to that. But also Will Smith is my favorite actor, and so of course I'm gonna, you know, try to peep that out. And I was like, you know, like we said that we were reading the book. I read the book before, like around the same time that I saw King Richard, so it kind of like helped me get a little bit more of the backstory. But I saw it 6 times because of like just how more centered it was around it being so like homegrown. It felt like like the whole plot is about them growing up in Compton and becoming Venus and Serena, but for me it was kind of like a lot more important to see like how it wasn't just like a crack story or like a violent story or anything like that. It was like, it kind of, from my understanding from Compton, and you know I'm from the IE, but having family that grew up in Compton their whole life, and I spent all my summers in Compton at my grandma's house, like it kind of gave more of like a realistic perspective on it. Like there was some violent scenes or whatever, but in my eyes, I'm like, that was probably just for the film. Like, I don't know if that actually happened or not, but it wasn't even about that. It was about the scenes where, you know, you have all of the sisters in, like, 3 beds, like, sleeping together. Or you have families calling CPS on them, you know, for whatever reason. It's like, those are kind of, like, the scenes that resonate with me from, like, personal experience. Like, having, like, I used to have cousins live with me at all times, or we would live at my cousin's house or whatever every now and then. And so, yeah, we're definitely lapped up in a bed, 3 of us in one bed, or sleeping on the floor or whatever it is, or having CPS called on, you know, my family or my cousin's family or wherever it is. So just like going through real life experiences where it's like, this is kind of more universal. It's not necessarily about Compton specifically or about Venus and Serena. It's kind of like something that a lot of people have gone through or are going through. Excuse me. And yeah, exactly like you said, like, it was about King Richard, but it kind of wasn't. It was about like the whole notion of what he was giving his girls, and like the protection and being like, you know, you're not here to be taken advantage of. This isn't just another kind of player. And not because of how great you are, but because of what you represent. And all these different things are going to come at you. And it was so good that I didn't know it was Will Smith. Like, once the movie started, like, I didn't see Will. Like, I actually saw, this, like, figure that he was representing. So after that, it was, like, I was so sold on it. And I didn't know that my roommates have HBO Max, and so I was like, oh, my God. Like, I was like, this is the cheat code. I'm watching this every day now. So, yeah, it really just brought things kind of back home for me personally.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. This is, like, it's so great to have someone who's walked those streets and lived those stories, reflecting on the art itself. And I think you're right. The movie does a great job of not focusing on, like, a climax of a trauma that would happen in the hood, but it's more like, this is the day-to-day reality. This is, like, what these folks are up against, but that's not the story here.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of Will Smith, what do you feel like you have in common with Will Smith?
Honestly, Will's always been, like, the most accurate figure I think I could relate to. Like, I looked up to Tupac a lot. I looked up to, like, a lot of different people a lot. LeBron James. But it was kind of different because I didn't really see myself as, like, a thug. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I always did kind of see myself as, like, I am the goofy kid from the hood. Like, I am, like, the good kid from the hood. And it's kind of interesting that, like, seeing more and reading Will's book and watching a lot of his interviews and things like that kind of followed, it kind of made me feel like I related to him more because I didn't know he was, like, involved with drug dealers and, like, was still around, like, a lot of different things. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm not, like, goody like Will is. Like, I do have, like, a criminal record, and, like, I did get involved in a lot of certain things like that. I didn't really see myself as being, head first in it, but I definitely have, did my toes on a lot of different things. And so hearing that he also got involved in, like, certain aspects of that kind of lifestyle or having, like, a closer glimpse of it than what I thought. Like, he wasn't a kid that stayed inside the house. Like, he was actually outside, and even when he was starting to climb within his success, he was still around this environment. And that's kind of how I felt when I was going to, like, college. Like, I was going to school, but I still lived in my dad's house. So I'm still, like, in my neighborhood, playing basketball at Veterans Park. Like, and so it was kind of, like, a lot more that I felt like I could relate to him about, where, like, we're kind of a little bit in both lives. Like, a life that's outside of this neighborhood, but also one that's still very much involved in it and wants to and chooses to be involved in it. Like, Will probably could have just found another group of friends. Like, you know what I mean? He probably could have just been around people from the label or from just his peers in the music industry, but he kind of still chose to keep his whole, entourage was filled with people from his childhood. You know what I mean? Yes. And that's something that I think that I kind of related to a lot, being like, I'm kind of in and out, but it's definitely, like, a kind of different, like, you don't think about the hood when you see Will. And I think that that's kind of been the biggest thing about my life currently, being like, I kind of carry that with me a lot. Like, I want to make sure I'm from the hood, da-da-da. And it's like, that's kind of not necessarily the goal. So I think I relate to him, honestly, a lot more now than I ever have, in a sense.
Thank you for that. I see the evolution, like, stages of evolution, right? Because it's like, exactly, you're coming from a similar place, and you're also realizing this isn't it for me.
Yeah.
And I see, it's exciting because I see similar drive and similar, like, stages of evolution after reading Will's book, with, like, some stuff that's going on with you. So it's...
Yeah, and it's, like, it's kind of interesting that we talked about it, like, on a FaceTime a few months ago, about, I was on the Will original story of, like, I do this or I die. And you're like, well, maybe it's not just those things. And you were the one who kind of told me to read Will's book, and you were like, well, I get what you're saying, and this is something that even someone that you idolized was on as well, but, he learned later on, when he was in his 50s, and, he didn't really allow himself to kind of feel different things and look at his career or his life in a different perspective. Like, you're still young, you can kind of pick up on his mistakes that he made at an earlier stage. And so it's kind of like more of that as well. Like, I feel like I'm definitely in the midst of transitioning between, like, it's I get rich or die trying, or it's like, or maybe you, like, also take a little break, or you kind of, like, you sit and just be. Like, how about you actually just sit the hell down and just appreciate what's kind of going on around you instead of just looking at the glass half empty. So Yeah, there's a lot of similarities for sure. That's like even just deeper rooted than just like, yeah, I'm a funny kid from the hood too. Like, you know.
There's that too,
There's that
exactly.
too, for sure.
But yeah, thank you. No, I love that.
Yeah.
What do you have in common with Richard Williams?
What I have in common for sure is that he keeps a straight line with everybody. I think that like the way that he may have felt about the same kind of apprehension and offensiveness he had towards his neighbors is kind of like the same apprehension he had against the news reporters and even like the trainers and all that type of stuff when he took him and his family traveled to Florida for all the training and stuff. It's like you would imagine that someone maybe in that position, I'm sure the trainers at the time kind of looked at it like, you should be very grateful for the opportunity you're given, but he was kind of looking at it more like as instead of an opportunity, I'm looking at the outcome. Like, I'm not really focused on what's just in front of me. I understand that this is kind of like a longer road than what you guys are kind of looking at it for. So for me, I kind of try to have a similar vibe. It's not about, I've had the opportunities to work with like some of the biggest names in my field and stuff like that, but the thing I'm kind of most proud of for myself is how much I keep a straight line with everything. And it's like, it doesn't really matter about the name that I work with. It's more about like what's kind of going to be our transactions and just how we're going to work well with each other or not. So he's kind of like, it's like having the audacity to be like, how dare you be such a good father even in this environment? Like, you're not pimping your kids out? Like, type of situation. It's like, no, I'm not. Like, if my daughter doesn't want to sign a Nike deal for $1 million, what's more important to me, my daughter or that Nike deal? Like, I'm more than ready to back my child before any corporation or any kind of agency or anything like that. It's like, if this is what's going to come, I just want what's best for my daughter. And if that's what she wants, and that's what she wants. It's kind of like the same thing I feel about myself or even artists that I help out. It's like, I just want to make sure that we're making the best decisions for everybody involved and not just what someone with a higher status or maybe they've done it before or whatever. But I think that we kind of know what's the best answer for us. So why don't we just kind of stick with that?
Yes. It's like balancing your value of yourself or your family or whatever the thing is that people want to pay you for.
Yeah.
With like balancing that with selflessness also, and being like, but it's also not about me, which is what we've talked about a bunch this weekend. Like, yeah, it's an interesting combination of knowing your worth and then fighting for it in a way that's like doesn't have to do with your ego, but the bigger picture.
Yeah, and just kind of like trusting that process. Like, it was really fun to see, not even in the face of like apprehension from like the outside world. It kind of can be on how you approach every level. Like the same routine that Richard had when he was I guess not watching, but was supporting his daughters at like the first tournaments. He was doing the same thing even at the big tournament in Oakland. It's like, if I'm gonna have my back turned, but it's because that's I'm like paying attention in a different way, and this is like my routine that works for us. So I'm not gonna change that even when we're in Oakland and playing against the best player in the world or something like that. Like, if this is the routine that works for us, then like why would we even change that up? Like, I just kind of see the consistency and how he keeps a straight line, and I think that's what got you there, and that's what's gonna actually help support your daughter, and that's what is a part of your plan. So why would you switch that up?
Totally. Yep. I love that. Does it feel good to be alive?
Yeah, for sure, man. It feels amazing, dog.
Why?
It feels good because you can literally, like, I always tell myself, my happiest times is when I realize that I don't have to do anything. Like, one, I'm very blessed because I have a lot of support. Like, I have a mom and a dad that both love me and would do whatever it takes to make sure I'm good. But I think I've also, in a weird way, I've had like the privilege. I always like reference like my uncle Michael, that he was like, I always had my family live with me, but my Uncle Michael was like just always so positive. Like, he was living with us, but he was sleeping on the floor. This was a grown-ass man in his 40s, 50s. I don't even remember what kind of job I don't know if he had a job at the time, but it never, whatever the situation was, I never seen him down. Like, I've never seen him complain. I never seen him anything like that. It was like, he kind of, and he's still alive now. I'm sure he's living the same type of life. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he's always kind of had like the appreciation for kind of like the simple things in life, like just rolling up a blunt, watching sci-fi, talking with his sister and my mom, and then just spending time with us and playing basketball and things like that. It's like, these are kind of like the things that we kind of built in this infrastructure that we just appreciate. So for me, it's like I already know what makes me happy, and it's the most simple things that money can't even get you. So if I'm gonna trip on, oh, I can't pay this bill right now, or whatever it is, or I'm putting more pressure on myself in a professional sense or in a athletic sense, whatever it is, that's like a priority for me. It's kind of like, well, I don't have to do this. Like I was happy when I wasn't even worried about any of this stuff. So as long as I reassure myself that I'm doing this as a choice, I'm not doing this because I have to, for any external reasons, like then I know that I'm living a good life, bro. So like life is really good because like you genuinely have a choice. Like you can literally, I tell you all the time, I'm like, I'm doing this shit right now, but at the end of the day, I'm probably gonna be out in the countryside, kind of chilling, in the middle of nowhere. You know what I'm saying, with maybe some family and stuff like that. But that's, I know, it kind of makes me happy, so I don't really have to fall victim to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing yourself, your stories, and allowing people to sort of get a closer look at who you are in the context of this classic film.
Yeah, bro. No, for sure. I appreciate your perspective on the film and just the whole weekend we had.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's going to wrap it up, and we'll be talking to Groovyie in the future soon. But thank you so much.
Yeah, man, appreciate you.
Whew, how good was that interview? I mean, if you don't already follow and, listen to music of, watch the videos of Groovyie, you gotta add him to your list because just a real ass homie. And I think that's what I miss in society these days. Everything from music to like my personal life. It's like I just want to be around real ass homies. That's it. and yeah, it's cool because King Richard is about, one of the realest families there's been in terms of sticking together and overcoming adversity. And Groovyie comes from that legacy as well. Your family doesn't have to be all living in the same house or whatever to be part of your legacy. I feel that way with my parents, even though they're not together. It's like they're a part of me and I carry that with me. And so, but to have someone, such an awesome independent artist who's got their values and their head on straight and all that stuff, it's dope. It's dope. It's like the rap version of the Williams, kind of thing. So definitely check out my boy Groovyie and definitely watch King Richard because it's, it's a classic at this point. And yeah, that's going to wrap up our film section. Thank you again to Veterans Park legend, brown skin baby, the one, the only, Groovyie, IE. And we're going to kick it off with the outro in a sec. Hey, listen, sometimes you gotta check in with yourself.
Check in with yourself.
All right, so for today, I had planned for the outro section to talk about credit, namely giving yourself credit. But then something else happened today that I want to talk about. But I'm going to start with credit because I think many of us in the creative field, in the artistic fields, we're constantly extracting from ourselves, hopefully in an aligned way. But whether we get paid for it or not, like, are we giving ourselves credit? And yeah, I know for me, I am only now starting to, which is wild, and it's like, yeah, last summer was the beginning where I was like, I suddenly found myself like on a real ass tour through Germany and started making it through like hour plus long sets and being like, oh my God, wait, okay, I'm doing it. So yeah, it's that's huge. That's what it's all about for me. And to be there and not recognize that you're there comes from that fight or flight response, that like survival thing. And I think this ties in with Will Smith and the book and like King Richard and things. It's like there's so much stress. So how we deal with it can be to lock into that mode of like, I'm going to make it through. But then at some point, exactly like Groovy said, you got to be like, okay, well, all right, but what about our health, or how are we feeling? Are we like, are you good? Like, are you okay? It's you don't stop to ask yourself those questions when you're in survival mode. And it's effective survival mode, but at some point, it's a good roller coaster to get off, I think. And so it's really cool because in Will Smith's book, he talks about how he's in his 50s. He is successful, just shot a movie or whatever, but wants to get away, goes out to Trinidad or Tobago. I forget exactly where he goes. And he's like on a boat with a friend. And he's like, so what are we doing? And the friend's like, dude, like we're out on a boat. We're swimming. We're little guys eating a mango. It's like we're doing it. We're living. And we're so conditioned these days to do so much outside of just be with ourselves. So, yeah, when Groovy mentioned, when I feel like I don't have to do anything, like that is where I feel like really good. And I think that I think I'm starting to get to that point where it's like, okay, the work that you've done and are doing is starting to speak for itself. So you don't have to have your foot on the gas pedal all the time. You can just be within yourself, and that's okay. And I have this really special set of cards, like tarot cards, but they're called medicine cards, and they're from native peoples and focus on animals. And so I got the raven turned upside down today, which means that the raven represents magic, and it's always there, but you can intellectualize it away or you can stress it away. And I've definitely been doing that. But lately I've been like, oh, just something will happen and I get this feeling like everything makes sense. It's generally fleeting, but still wonderful. And that's being present. That is allowing the universe to take over, taking your hand off the wheel. It's stuff that I feel like I was more connected to in my youth, and now, that adult mind sets in. But yeah, I don't know if all of this makes sense, but to me, it's like whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, like give yourself credit. You're living through a pandemic. You're surviving. And also we don't have to control everything. Like we can just kind of see where things take us sometimes. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for sticking with me. Thank you once again to Groovyie for the interview. So good. I can't wait to listen to this during editing and just soak it up again. And I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Been in low power mode. In low power mode. Been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear. I've been in low. I've been in low power mode all year. Think it's time to switch it up to high gear.